Okay, well, I think this is a great question. I usually don't like that label of
Mm-hmm.
Africa
Mm-hmm.
being poor,
Mm-hmm.
even though that's
Mm-hmm.
all is being shown everywhere, because it has its very rich parts as well.
Yes.
Oftentimes, when you go to these countries that host so many refugees, and now I'm talking about refugees because remember, there are internally displaced people too. That's one of the businesses. I mean, that's the oldest business that I have with my husband, and the second one is a farm. Um,
You
and
mentioned
the
that to me.
farm,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the farm we basically produce chicken because, like you said, we eat a lot of meat in
Oh
Burkina,
yes, yes.
and I don't think a single farm can satisfy the market of chicken in
No,
Burkina. It's not
no,
possible.
no.
So there is a need for that. So if you want, we are going more into the value chain of of the first business. So we supply
Mm.
that business with chicken, and we also started growing passion fruit there this year because we noticed that we used to receive that from Cote d'Ivoire, very expensive.
Okay.
Seems the trees are starting to die in Cote d'Ivoire because it's a wild tree. I mean, it's a bush
It is. It is.
vine.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes. It is.
So
It is.
they're starting to die from some sort of attack. They don't even know what it is,
What it is.
and because it's a tree in the bush, no one is really paying attention. It seems, that way. So we're growing the passion fruit. It's growing. We haven't produced anything yet, and it was believed that it could not grow in Burkina. So we experimented it first at
I wonder
home,
why with that
and we got a
closeness,
lot out of it.
with the
I
proximity
don't
between
know.
Burkina and
Yeah.
it happens to a lot of us in Africa, right? Where we make this assumption, you don't even know who said it, where it comes from, and we accept it, right?
Yep.
And I know somebody at home who has a farm is next to a river, like kind of like a lake, who started growing strawberries at home, who started growing like even apple, right? These are the
Mhm.
kind of things that,
Wow.
yeah, even apple in Gambia, because I saw him put it on
Oh
his
wow.
WhatsApp status. So like he's actually a neighbor,
Mhm.
so finding ways as a farmer to look at those things that apple tree, the reason
Mhm.
why they say won't grow, is what actually he worked
Mhm.
on. He's not growing it like in abundance, but he experimented with it
Right.
and he got the fruit. But as far as strawberries go, he's growing strawberries already
Mhm.
a lot more.
Mhm.
And he supplies like hotels and restaurants at home
Mhm.
in a way where his customers are waiting for him to produce.
For
And
him.
actually, he's choosing what customer to supply. What a good problem to have as a farmer and as a business person, right?
I'm telling you.
It's like, who do I supply next? Like, and just to tell you how scarce it is, right? And this is the potential that's there. So when you told me about the farming, and I want you to tell me a little bit more about that, where
Mhm.
did that come from? Did that come from this job you're doing as a livelihood specialist that is actually helping guide, like displaced people in Africa and whatever into like, how can we use our land to actually give you a dignified job? And you
Mhm.
practiced it on yourself, or was that something that was there even before that?
Um,
Yassine as a farmer, like I'm like,
who
it's
would have
Yassine.
said?
It's Yassine. Huh? Tell me more
Oh
about
no.
that.
It actually started with that job in
Okay.
Peace Corps when I was discovering my own country.
Mm,
When I
mm,
was moving
mm,
around meeting
mm,
people, I
mm.
discovered that I actually liked agriculture.
Oh,
So I started growing things at home. Moringa was a big one that we were pushing when I was in Peace Corps, just for the
yeah,
goodness of it.
yeah,
So I planted some in the house.
yes.
Then I also planted what you call in Senegal mad.
Mad, yeah,
The
yes,
mad. Do you know
mad.
that fruit? Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes, yes, yeah. Oh, you
Okay,
did?
okay. Yes. But it was at home and it was, I mean, that's what my father would allow me to do because then I was still at my parents' house. Um, and then when I moved to my own house, my husband, we had a big yard and had started growing stuff. And that's actually, it was even the first time we did the passion fruit, it was a
Yes,
mistake. I mean, we got it for our last son's baptism to make
yes.
juice. We got the fruits from Cote d'Ivoire, and when we finished, we just threw the seeds, and it started growing.
It
And
starts
when someone
germinating.
told us it was passion fruit, we grew it, and then the first harvest was about 100 kilograms for a fruit for a tree that we were told would never grow in Burkina. So
Look
there's
at
starting
that.
to be this mind shift, as you said. There's a man in the second city of Burkina in Bobo Dioulasso.
Mm-hmm.
He's growing pineapple, and we were also told that pineapple wouldn't grow in Burkina, and they are even sweeter than the coast countries because of the abundance of the sun, basically, that we
Yes,
have.
yes,
And he's getting more from it than in the coast.
yes.
You mentioned strawberry. Just 2 days ago, we planted strawberries in a greenhouse
That's what you
at the
told me.
farm.
That's what you mentioned that you
Yes.
were gonna try. Yes, yes, yes,
So
yes.
we're trying that. It's our very first time as well. And I think I mentioned that to you too before. We are trying an aquaponics system. So
Yes,
an
yes, you did.
aquaponics system is a system where you grow fish
Yes,
and the
yes.
water from the fish feeds some plants. We wanted to try salad. That was the hope because we have quite some good hotels near, not very far from the from the farm, and we wanted to supply them, but the salad just didn't work. We didn't get it to work yet.
Okay. Oh, oh,
However,
yet I like that. Uh
we
huh.
had put mint, fresh mint, three varieties, and that just has been thriving. And
Wild.
we've been supplying customers with that, and they just love it. So right now we had to put a pause to the system to kind of clean it and make sure that we understand it very well because none of us is an expert at these things. So it's trial and error really
Winging
mostly.
it and
And
going and seeing, discovering. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that specific project was done with five other friends. We
Mm.
put money together and started that. And I think that is also something that we don't do enough um, as Africans, like coming together to do a business. And we
Mm.
should encourage that. Everyone wants to have their own business on their own, blah, blah, blah. But if you're together, you can have a bigger capital and start bigger and then actually share ideas on how to grow the business and not just be on your own and your own ideas. So I'm
Yeah,
diverging a little bit
I
into
love it.
another.
Keep going. Yes, yes, yes. Because that's how I want this conversation to go. Yes. There's just a
Okay.
lot to talk about.
So
We can't fit it all. Yeah.
I have
Mm-hmm.
my own ideas about
Yes.
what is needed for a bigger, stronger Africa. We're
Mm-hmm.
not poor. I think we're one of the
Oh.
richest continents.
Oh.
I mean, just look at the wealth we are all walking on. There's no other continent that is that rich. We have it all. You name it, we have it.
We
And
are
yet
not poor.
we are money poor.
We-
So to me, it's just a matter of organizing all those resources. Um, I believe that governments should not go like into what I call micro governing.
yes. Uh
They
huh.
should remain at building infrastructures, building industries that will absorb a lot of this youth that is just hungry for work, that is just hungry to put their own strength and knowledge into play.
Mm-hmm.
So I have hope because I'm just a hopeful person by
Yeah.
nature.
Oh, you're an optimist. Yeah.
That we starting to see more shifts towards that type of mentalities. When I was working in Peace Corps, I'm giving now an example to illustrate what I
Yes.
mean by build
Yes.
infrastructure and
Yes.
industries. We used to go to some villages in the middle of nowhere. Like sometimes I even ask myself, how did we even get there? And these villages would spend like 2 years not see a single car. So imagine when you go, there are kids that are there that never saw a car. They would just take rocks and be throwing at that big white thing that is moving they've never seen in their life. And all the dogs from
Wow.
households would just come out to bark at the
Yeah.
car.
What the hell is this? Yeah.
And when you go
Nice.
there, it's crazy the amount of tomatoes that they would be growing, and there is no access to the market because accessibility is just horrible to get there. It's it's unbelievable. There's no road. So the only problem that they have is accessibility. So if the government is
Mm.
able to build a road from this village to the main road even, that's
To
all they need.
connect to the
They can
demand.
grow.
Yes.
Yeah, they can grow the tomatoes already. Now, development agencies, what they
Mm-hmm.
can do is maybe
Mm-hmm.
train them on how to transform the excess tomatoes that will still remain so that it still can be sold because tomato is seasonal.
The
They cannot
seasonal
grow it
and
year round
hard to
in
preserve.
our country
Yes.
and
Mm.
hard to preserve. So
Mm-hmm.
transforming it is a solution. How
Yes.
can we have an industry in the close by bigger
Yes.
town with electricity and all that can absorb this? Or just women organize them into an association, and then they can transform it, put it into jars, and sell it to
Yes.
the market. So there are so many opportunities. We have the resources. We just need to organize them in a way that it benefits all instead of the few.
Yes. I'm looking at a paper that I jot down everything that sparks something in my head and I write it down. It's I'm all over the place on it, right? But I don't even want to follow a theme. I'm looking at Africa and I'm looking at you as that ambassador. Talk about things that you're trying yourself, right? You have an education, masters in accounting. I spoke to somebody else you know too, masters in finance, Roland. My boy, the idiot Mike Mendy, got his MBA. He's also on the accounting side. And all of you are in Africa. One thing that all of you have in common is you're following this professional job that you're educated and trained on, even though you shifted from accounting to livelihood specialist, but still with that formal education. But you're looking at Africa and doing it yourself. Everybody that I just mentioned is in farming,
Mhm.
right? Seeing the potential that Africa has, having the land, having the sunshine, having even the labor for anybody that scales from your backyard farming, like having all of that just sitting there waiting for who will tap into it, right? Meanwhile, I have Africa has the diaspora that's outside of
Mhm.
Africa
Mhm.
figuring out figuring out how to use Africa and home as a resource, right? Whether to escape the hardship of the economic side of things, where I can, like, either I'm not making money, here in the US, in Europe, in Australia, I'm not making enough money to be able to go home, but I'm scared to make that move. But one thing I've been hearing over and over from conversations and from just people that I know, my mother-in-law, my in-laws being from Zimbabwe, like that whole theme of everybody that they've mentioned that have gone home and went the farming, right,
Mhm.
have zero regrets, right? Whether it's raising animals, whether it's livestock, or whether it's planting things, everybody that I
Mhm.
know has zero regrets because it's just there, sitting there waiting, the land and even the demand for it. Now,
Mhm.
Something that I've seen be experienced for the example I can give, obviously, is what I know is my mother-in-law being doing the same thing, working here as a nurse, and goes back home, has a farm. One thing that I see that was an issue for her was grow all these crops, and then when it came to the market for it, right, it
Mm-hmm.
became a thing where the price that she thought she can set for these things
Mm-hmm.
that she's producing, now she
Mm-hmm.
has to conform to what the community is, and how much they're able to spend in buying it, right? So her
Mm-hmm.
initial investment, whatever required equipment and money and whatever to set up that, it
Mm-hmm.
couldn't she could not price whatever she was producing, in order to like break even or start making
Right.
money.
Mm-hmm.
She had to conform to what the
The
community
market price.
was the market was able to spend in getting that product, right? So that adds this additional layer of challenge for Africa, being Africa, where
Mm-hmm.
from business there's this kind of like I, I hate the word, but charity, because I hear it so much, it annoys me, but there's this part of what you're doing having to like fit the community that you work in, and it
Yeah.
keeps a lot of business people away.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with what you said. A recent example that happened to me was last January. We grew tomatoes
Hmm.
in a greenhouse, the same greenhouse we're using now for strawberries. And when it was time to sell, we didn't have a market because the market was already flooded with tomatoes. So ours were in a greenhouse, so using a technology that's already expensive, but we were producing at the same time as everyone else,
Oh
including those that were
no.
producing it the cheapest way possible. So obviously we couldn't sell at the same price and count our profits the same way.
Yes, yes,
So
yes,
the well, I knew how to transform tomatoes, so immediately I put my team into work, and we made a lot of jars that we sold after when there was no more tomatoes. We started selling it. But yes, you need to predict your market before, even
yes,
before you engage. And
yes.
now, okay, I think in agriculture we need to
Hmm.
think about agriculture differently.
Okay.
Um, it's either you produce when no one else is producing, so
Yes,
producing
yes.
when the market is empty of what you want to produce,
My mother-in-law learned
or
that. Yeah. Hmm.
uh-huh, or you agree with your buyers ahead of the production and tell them, listen, I can supply you this quantity of this product, specific product, at this price at this time.
By
If
time
they
so
say
and so.
yes, you actually write a contract. These are now for big producers. Let's say
Oh,
corn,
yes,
those are
yes, yes.
producing corn or millet cereals in general,
Hmm.
or those large quantity things. Once you have that, but I think it can be defaulted to tomatoes and all too. Huh?
Yes,
So you have a contract. So you produce, you go, you give them. If you don't reach the level, the quantity that you said you would
yes,
produce, then that's your problem. You have to pay a fine that is um, that you would have determined in that contract.
yes,
If they say they can no longer buy that much, it's their
yes.
problem because they signed the contract, so they still owe you that money.
And you
So
produced. Yes. And
you produce.
yeah,
Yeah. So we need to think about it a different way, not just produce with the hope that we will sell,
that will
but
have a market.
think
Ah,
strategically about it before we engage into it. So
yeah. Wow.
and that's what livelihood, that's part of livelihood.
Ah, thank you. Thank you. Already, you
Because
dropped, you
usually on
just
the
gave,
market,
yeah, yeah.
those products have a cycle. There are times when the market is flooded with them, probably isn't the time for you to add your own. And there are times when there's scarcity. That's probably the time you can um, produce yours. You know, the law of
Supply and
supply
demand.
and demand.
Supply and demand.
Hmm.
Ah, yes. You dropped
So
a
that's
gem.
how you
I'm,
put that master of yours into play in farming and all.
I see. I see where the education part of this is coming.
Yeah.
Listen, we've touched on so many things. Like I
Mhm.
said, everything I planned, I just you just made me throw out. We spent a lot of time talking about farming. We spent a lot of time talking about the potential of Africa. You're not talking about something that you read from some college somewhere, right? You are actually testing this. You're actually doing this yourself, even though you have this background, this education that can set you up in an office and just be earning a decent living, and so you're giving the people the direction, by doing it yourself, right? And when I think about that alone, when I think about Africa and this potential of Africa that's being talked about all over every day, these are the kind of things, these are the practical examples that I like to talk about. That's why I just held it there and held it there strong. For anybody who's thinking about Africa, and you think about, when you think about business, you know there's a lot of things you can sell, but for me personally, the number one is farming. The number one is agriculture. It's like how to supply this need that will never go away.
Mhm.
As we grow, it will grow with us. Supplying people with food and jobs that come from this food sector,
Mhm.
and it excites me as an African knowing that it's there, right? If
Mhm.
Yassine is farming right now,
And anyone can.
I don't want to say that part, but thank you.
No, that's true.
And we should take full advantage of that. Yes, I don't want to leave you without shifting to something that, because I thought about this before we chatted, right? I'm like, okay, Yassine is at home. We're talking about Africa. I know how much you love family and your kids, and you already touched on that foundation you want to give them, hence Africa and stuff like that. And that's what I want to hear more about. What have you seen in Africa that make you as a mother so comfortable with giving your kids that foundation and livelihood in Africa at this stage where it's the foundational level? It's where, even some beliefs come, like, those habits that carry on in life. They all come from where, like the source, like that root where
Mhm.
you started. What's making you think the best thing for the kids right now is giving them all of this foundation at home?
Um, the the foundations that we are working, my husband and I, on, they're not necessarily related to livelihoods. It's
Hmm.
the importance of family. Recently, my mother was very ill and we lost
Yes.
her a few months ago.
Yes.
But
Yes.
to me, it was very important for them to see how we cared for my mother
Mm.
because it gives them the understanding that you need to stand for your family. What I didn't mention earlier is that one of the reasons why I stayed in Burkina also after the COVID time is
Yeah.
because my mother was ill
Stay
and she
close to
needed
mom.
me
Yeah.
at that point.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it, it's important for them to understand that
Mm.
family
Mm.
is everything. Family is the the um, the setting you go back to when nothing else is working.
Mm.
And if you don't have a strong
Mm.
family, what are you going
Mm.
to go back to? So we emphasized that, and we wanted them to go to the schools in Burkina because
Yes.
that's how should I call it? The discipline of our schools, I guess.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Um,
Yes.
is
Yes.
the that discipline that they
Yes.
give them in
Yes.
the way it's taught. I still believe that our education system needs a little bit of refresh,
Okay.
but they shouldn't touch that discipline part.
Keep
That should
that part.
definitely remain,
Mm.
yeah. But the school
Mm.
should be more adapted to our realities. That
To what
also,
things are
I'm
right
for
now.
that.
Yeah. Mm.
Yes, and they see us go to the farm too. They love
Oh.
going to the farm.
Oh.
except the first one a little bit because he's a teenager and has a mind of his own.
Yeah. Try to play
um,
video games. Yeah.
but but it's important for them to understand what farming is, because when we do these businesses, we want them to be successful.
Yes.
But guess what?
Yeah.
Your business should continue even after you. So you need to teach your kids from a young age to love that business too, hoping that at least one out of them will love it enough that they will come and take over after
Yes.
you.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that is also something, and that would mean that this person will come back home, will come back to
Mm.
Burkina, or will
Mm.
remain in Burkina and continue that work. So
Mm.
these are the
Mm.
foundations that that we wanted to give them. We sometimes go to villages and meet people randomly, just like I used to when I was working for Peace Corps,
Yes.
and I take them with me so that they also don't think of themselves as highly privileged, but also they couldn't think that way. But
Wow.
they should also keep in mind that there are people that um, that they can help and that are not as fortunate as they may be.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I had them once sort out their toys so that we would give some away. And when we finished giving, the last one was like, "So, mom, now the village kids have more toys than me. How come?" I was like, "You totally missed the point."
What a good exercise, though. What a good exercise.
So
Wow.
I think on like on the spot, he really enjoyed giving and
Yes.
seeing people being very happy at his
Yeah.
old toys.
Yes.
And then he realized, wait a minute, now I give
I just
most of
lost my.
them now.
Mm.
They're
Mm.
richer
Yeah.
in toys than I am.
Yeah. Than I am. Ah. Yeah. But what a good
So,
exercise.
but I guess
Hmm. Hmm.
eventually it will hit him. That
Yes. It will.
picture of this kid being super happy will
Yes.
stay with him. Yeah.
Yes. That would be.
So
Yeah. That
we're
would
not
precede
perfect,
everything.
but we
Yeah.
try.
You're doing your part. You're doing your part, and I like that. And I like that. As I conclude, just looking at family, and I want to emphasize on that because this is I know how you are with your kids and family. Is I've spoken to like a lot of people in the diaspora, our people,
Mm,
who in that love for family and taking care of their kids, part of the things they mentioned is access to healthcare part. My kids, they're my
mm,
priority. Access to healthcare, and then they mentioned safety, like the shakiness. So like the being in a bigger country, it presents its own challenges. Like Roland told me, he said, Mikey, you have your kids there. When you think about, there are certain things that you think about as far as their safety, like gun violence, that I don't have to worry about. You know what I mean?
mhm,
So there's a give and take, right? But in a bigger countries, so let's talk about Burkina, for example, where there've been, all this shakiness as far as like safety and like just the country being tranquil, right? If you think about the safety of your kids and access to healthcare and stuff like that, how, I know
mhm.
you process this, how do you think about that as something that's important to you, but making that choice of giving them the foundation at home?
Oh, it is definitely something I worry about on a daily
Worry
basis,
about. Mm, mm,
especially the healthcare system,
mm,
because it's not very good at home in most of our countries. In fact, in Africa,
mm-hmm.
healthcare is really an issue. Um, and that worries me a lot, not only for my kids but even for myself, for my husband, for my parents, enfin, for my dad now,
That. Mm,
my brother and sister. So it's hard. And
mm.
right now, in Burkina we have this terrorism security situation that
Yes.
is also
Yes.
affecting
Yes.
us, and it's right now
Yes.
it's very scary sometimes.
Mm.
um like my first one is in the French school, and there is a big anti-French um, sentiment. right now in Burkina, and that worries me. What's going to happen to my son if he goes to school today? So every day I'm worried about him. But I'm also teaching him, some basic security
Mm.
measures that he can take if
Having
something
to teach your
happens.
kid that, yeah.
I mean, you
Mm.
have to, and it's not
Mm.
like defend yourself or anything like
Right,
that, but
right, right.
little things that I also learned when I was in the Peace Corps and we were getting these trainings in case of attack. I mean, they were doing it more as a routine, but it can be useful. So that is a worry. It
Yeah,
is a
yeah,
worry.
yeah.
Security and healthcare.
Mm.
Um,
Mm. Mm.
but still, I mean, I'm crossing my fingers here. We are fine. We thank God. Um, but the threat is there too. But it goes back to what I told you at the beginning. You sit
Yes.
down and you write the pluses and the minuses, and you
Yes,
decide.
pluses and minuses. Yeah, I won't
Mhm.
forget that in this conversation. Like everything, like even those of us that have stayed,
Mhm.
away from home, the pluses and minuses. Even with the kids, even you talked about stuff that I admire. Having my kids have access to the foundation that I have because I value that foundation. I value the
Right.
discipline side of things. I value like not being confined, like what I learned, being able to just run out of the house, go play and come back, how that formed me, versus right now, if my 4-year-old runs out of here and
Mhm.
people look around and he's not supervised, the way I'll have cop cars around him figuring out who the parent is. So like these are things that like the pluses and minuses like are endless. But at the end of the day, when you make that choice, you will
Mhm.
miss some. And that's something that I grabbed from what you're saying. I was gonna let you go until you mentioned, that because I told you I had things that I was thinking about that I threw away. But this is key for me to mention, for me to actually tap into what your brain is thinking before you
Mhm.
go. The safety side of things, like there's the Islamist, on that northern side, and I'm thinking about just what is of recent. Um, in at home right now, out of curiosity, for people that are interested in knowing a little bit more about Burkina Faso, because
Mhm.
of late you guys are on the news, right?
Mhm.
Your president is our little brother, right? Roland and I'm like, wow, like
Yeah.
wow,
Right.
I'm old now. The president of Burkina is my
Okay.
little brother. That
And not by a little, eh?
Oh, my younger brother is the president of Burkina. Like, there was a time that I can't say this of any country or of any leader in the world. So this is good. It means I'm growing. So, so when I thought about his stance, how he came to power, and like I'll give you an analogy. I have a cousin. Well, God rest his soul. He passed away.
Oh.
But when he was younger, he broke his finger. It was so long ago, I can't remember what he was doing, but the finger is like snapped, like it points to the other direction, right? And he didn't do what he was hiding it. He didn't do what he was supposed to do to fix it back, and it healed but crooked, like healed but
Mm.
crooked. So it healed but crooked, and now it's okay because it doesn't hurt. It's now
Mhm.
him. He looks at it. It's a reminder, but he didn't fix it when it was broken. Now
Uh-huh.
he was told the only way to fix that and make it straight is break it again.
Break it again.
So
Yeah.
it's a choice between going through that pain and agony to have it straight again and look normal and look pleasant and all that stuff.
Mhm.
But it was too late. He accepted it as it was. It was his ID. He was good with it. Extreme analogy, but I think about Burkina from being colonized in when I looked, it was 1896 or something by the French to getting independence, at what, 66, 60 something? I know it's around
60.
there, right? 60. So getting independence. So the French presence from then Like if you go 18 something to now, like over 100 years, the French presence in Burkina, right, has to be something that is ingrained, seeped in schools, influence. Burkina Bay is going to France, like so, like it's so in the fabric of what Burkina Faso is. Having that anti-French sentiment that you're just talking about right now will mean breaking something that has morphed into a norm, to now like just going through the agony of kind of like detaching from all of it, to
Mm-hmm.
going to find another identity. What is the general sentiment of the people in shifting from this thing that is already ingrained and forced in their system and is sitting there over a century? Like what is the general sentiment of the people? I'm curious to know.
I think it is a change.
Hmm.
When you look at our parents,
Hmm.
most of them went to after high school. They would
Yes,
systematically go to France,
by
or
default.
very few of
Hmm.
them to Russia by default to
Hmm.
study at the university level.
Hmm.
So they came back with that mentality of the French are teaching us, the French are the French system is the way.
Yeah.
And now you have this younger generation that did not get that necessarily. Very fewer of them
Mm.
because universities did also grow in our countries,
True.
and
True.
many of them were trained throughout in the national system throughout
Hmm.
and are working and are thriving. So there's now this shift in mentality that why aren't we able to adapt that inherited system into our own reality? I think that's what is happening now.
I
And even
see.
when I mention anti-French, I
Yes.
don't think if anyone sees a French person, if a
Hmm.
Burkinabe sees a French person, they will slap him on the face or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's the
yeah.
French system
The system.
that they are against. Now,
Mm.
we still saw some attacks to
Right.
the French embassy in Burkina, even the French school. They were not able to enter, but they were right there. So it is there, but I, I think it's something bigger. It's this
Mm.
younger generation trying to express something
Yes.
that the the existing system is not working
Mm.
and we need to change it. Because look at us. Your unemployment rate is our employment rate. Okay.
Wow.
I mean that's
Wow.
the example I like to take to laugh a
Wow.
little bit
Wow.
about
Yes.
it. But
That's
it is
big.
it's it's bad. Like you will have the government each year they recruit, right, for the public service, and they may have like 1,000 new posts that they want people for.
You
You will
mentioned
have
that to
like
me.
2 million people applying for it. So your chance of earning this is like 0 point something percent. But you should see them fighting to get into those classrooms to do the test because everyone is clinging on to that 0 point something percent. So, how do we get the youth to think that you're going to be miserable? You may be miserable even in those offices because you may not earn much. And you should think about something else. That's when entrepreneurship is coming in.
Yes.
But I also say not everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur.
That's true. That's true.
You
It's
can
not an
get
easy
the
route.
training.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's not an easy thing and it goes beyond the training that you will get. It's
Yes.
decision making on a daily basis, and that is not taught in school.
Yes.
It
Yes.
really is you using your mind to make
Hmm.
those decisions. But
Mm.
as an entrepreneur, the hope is that a successful one will hire other youth, other young people to work for him. So contributing to reducing unemployment anyway.
Right. Right.
So that's why I'm saying that government should invest more into infrastructure, industry, but also into entrepreneurship for the youth. That's my personal view on
No,
that.
no, I
It's
see it.
not,
I hear it. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
really speak for myself here.
I know. I hear
Um,
it. Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
once we do that, and it's also because people are not, you know, they're fed up. Really, it when you look, you go even in Waga, you see the
Mm-hmm.
youth. They're just sitting and drinking tea on a daily basis and talking about politics and security and
And
this
the
and that
struggles and everything. Yeah.
and the struggles. They go back home even more depressed because there's no hope. It's the hope that we need to work on creating again. And that is the basis of all these issues that we're having right now.
Right now.
The terrorism and all of that. It's that's where it comes from.
And yes, it's sad that it can't be solved in a snap, right? And
Mhm.
where we live in a world where we there's the problem, here's the solution, fix, done. Like the fact that hence mentioning how long this is ingrained, how this finger is
Mhm.
now crooked, now straightening it will be painful, right? So the fact that all of that exists and this is where we are right now is the reason why some of the focus has to be taken to individual survival, and by that I mean not selfishly, the collective has to be there, but
Mhm.
self-development, where if one shifts their mind to say, okay, I'm looking for a job, I have a degree from the local university, but okay,
Mhm.
that office job where they're only looking for something that's less than 1%, now I'm gonna, let me start at my father's farm and grow passion fruit and sell it in the local market. See if that won't
Mhm.
give me more money than that job that is having millions of people apply for. Once
Mhm.
that shift starts to happen and everybody does this in a small scale,
Mhm.
I think something will come out of that is better than what we see today.
Mhm.
Yes, you've been generous with your time. We went way past because it's you. We went way past because I have stuff here that I've not mentioned from notes, that things that you said. Yes,
Sorry.
I have to have you back because these are things that are also important for people to hear from Yass's brain. And thank you for doing this with me
You're
from Rome.
welcome. It was a pleasure.
Wow, I'm fascinated.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Yass. This is good
Thank you,
stuff.
Mike. It's been wonderful talking to you again.
Whew.